Welcome back to Ride Rescue and the Camaro rebuild. In this episode, I want to get this dash completely back together. Hopefully by the end of this episode, the car will be to the point where I can actually drive it again. I need to be able to pull it out. I need to be able to move it around. Right now I'm just pushing it back and forth in my garage because I've got so many things disconnected and I've got the steering column dropped down and the steering wheel out. So hopefully I will have all this back together today. Well, the first thing I need to do in order to get this dash back in is I need to put in these vents. The foam surrounding this piece that sealed it up was just powder. As I took it out and took it apart to replace the vent, it just disintegrated, both for the seal as well as this seal against the dash itself. You can see it's just powder. So I've got some pieces of foam that I want to stick in around the area, and the way this piece sets in, it only gets pushed against some rubber pieces, so I just want to make sure everything is solid and not rattling around. I'll put a little adhesive on this edge so I can glue that into place. Now I can get out my shiny bling. A huge, huge difference. That shiny new chrome. That old original foam is either gone to powder or it's just sticky, gooey foam. Well, this foam I need to glue back in. It is broken loose. Okay, now there's 4 little bolts that go in there, and that's done. Now, no rattles. It's all sealed. Hopefully, I got my greasy, sticky foam fingers all over that nice chrome, but yeah, that moves nice and smooth. It's tight. No possibility of rattles. Get my microfiber towel and get that fingerprints off of that pretty chrome. Very nice. Now we got the nice silver trim. We got the chrome. Beautiful. It's ready to go back in. So we'll get a couple of the hardest things out of the way first. One is going to be the light switch, and then we're going to be looking at windshield wiper switch, and then the power top switch. Once I get those in place, then I should be able to finish up with all the back of the dash lights, gas gauge, and then the speedometer cable. One thing I'm noticing here on this hose, I don't know if you can see that hose. This is one of the hoses to the headlights. It's cracked. In fact, it's cracked in many places. It looks like it might be too short to reach. So I'm going to have to cut it off and get to where it's some solid rubber. And then I'm going to have to put in a little splice and add some length to it, unless I can get enough distance to pull it over to reach that switch, or when I cut it off and trim it, so I can get that sealed. I talked about before being able to take this out. There's a little teeny button right here, if you can see that. If you push that in, when this is all the way out, it releases the lever and you can slide that out where the lock is. So it's hard to do when the dash is in place and to get your finger around to the back side of that, but if you know where it is and you know what you're feeling for, you'll be able to do that. And you can take this switch out by twisting this little piece off from the plastic dash itself, and that's where you can pull it down and work on it or replace the switch if you have a bad one. So hopefully that'll help you. Because this is a plastic dash, this light switch, the light switch has a grounding platform. So this is mounted on here, and then it screws in with one of the screws into the base of the plastic. So that is very difficult to get that piece lined up and get all of those pieces where they belong. One problem I am recognizing right now, on the back of this panel where the ground plate goes, it mounts to the switch for the windshield wipers. This stud's missing, so I'm going to have to rig up a way to ground this switch that I didn't realize before. That's going to be fun. I'm going to have to try to figure out a way of getting that little connector in the back. I might have to glue some plastic epoxy in a piece back there in order to put that ground on. There's the little bolt that goes to it. Make it easier for me to work with that, I'm going to take that ground loose, and it'll give me more wire so I can get it and manipulate it into place. Okay, well that's going to make things a lot easier. I can put this on and this on, all on the back of the dash at the same time. That'll really help. Well, this is the area I was talking about. The switch for the windshield wipers and the switch for the lights has to be grounded. And this little connector that was broken off, that's missing, is my ground. I am going to have to rig something up here in order to be able to get that grounded. So what I'm thinking of is if I can get a little piece of metal behind there that I can twist this into, then it will hold that ground in position. So that's what I'm going to try. So I have lots of these little fasteners that I've collected over the years. Let's see if I have one that will be able to lock down on the back side of that. That will work. We have ground. Awesome. It's interesting, it's actually grounds in two positions, but I want to guarantee that's got a good positive ground, so that works, makes sense. Now hopefully I'll be able to reach those hoses. That is not going to be easy. Yeah, that is definitely going to make it difficult to hook up those hoses. So I'm going to have to connect this to the wire and to the hoses and then do it after the dash is in place. Looks like that's probably about the only way I'm going to be able to make this easy for myself. But at least I've got the ground in. A lot of this stuff, I can't even see it myself. I just have to feel for where everything hooks up. Of course, the one that I cannot get out without breaking is the one that doesn't work. That's very, very frustrating. You gotta have a light on the speedometer. Oh, it works. It just needed a good ground. All right, all the lights work. Now I just have to start getting it all down inside. Disconnect the battery. A lot of these are just literally having to feel for where it is and what it is and whether or not it's connected. And now it's a matter of getting that vent to line up and get that in place. And that, fortunately, I can see. I will get a few screws just to kind of hold it in place as I finish feeling around and making sure everything's attached. There's a lot fighting going on over here that I can't quite tell what those issues may be. I've got everything out of the way that I can tell. So now it's just a matter of figuring out what needs to be lined up and what's fighting. Still got a lot of tension. Things just aren't lining up on this side. There we go. Aha! The main wiring harness that goes on the back side was pinned between the firewall and where the speedometer cable goes. Now let's check the wipers. Check. Top. Check. We got lights on the dash, signals. Check. Check. Put in the heater switches. I'm missing a couple of screws for the heater switches. I'll have to round up. There's 2 screws right here. And then the one right there that is here. There's a couple of bolts on the back side of this, which I have. So we can put those on. And then put in the radio. Moving right along. Alright, just need to get the steering column back in place, and I'm probably going to repaint it. I didn't want to paint it first and then scratch it all up. So I think I will leave this hanging down, and then I can mask everything off and paint this, and then I can get it up into place. And I'll put in the radio and the light switch. I was guessing on the hoses to the light switch for the headlights, and I got out my manual just to see if by chance it was all there, and it is. There are 2 hoses that go to the light switch. One is black and one is orange. And when I looked at the 2 hoses, one has no markings on it, and the other hose actually has kind of a red-orange line right down the side of it. So I don't know if I would have gotten it right the first time if I was just guessing. So I'm glad I had this old diagram to actually look it up. And this is an old assembly manual that I bought many years ago. And it has been very, very handy for working on Camaros over the years, and I have worked on many a Camaro. There are the 2 connectors on that light switch. You can see I cut off the 2 pieces that were really cracked and split. A lot of vacuum leak on those. It's got kind of the same orange color on it, and this one has no colors at all, so that would be the black one. So I will route that up through these 2 holes, and now that I've got it cut back, these lines are actually in really good shape. They're very pliable. I was able to get a little bit more length off of these hoses by pulling them through the firewall. I'll get that wired up and get those 2 hoses in, and then I can poke it through that hole and try to thread it back together. These nuts have a little slot And I don't have a screwdriver wide enough to go in that slot, nor do I have the actual tool. So I like to use some needle nose pliers, go across that gap, and tighten it up. It's interesting that when I took it out, there wasn't anything supporting it but the front too. But it looks like there is a side piece. So I'll find a screw that fits in that, and then I can brace the back of that so it's not bouncing. Now these wood grain trim pieces just slide on first, and then the nut holds that trim in place. This side is easy because it's protruding far enough that you can actually reach it. The other side is way back in there, and it's pretty difficult to get a nut on it. And these are just brass threads, so don't want to tighten it up very tight. You can easily strip them out. There we go. Everything's finished but the steering column and the piece that goes underneath. One of the things I was noticing while I was under the dash is the emergency brake lever. It's all tarnished and gray, and you can't read. There's actually text on there. So I'm going to clean this up and then paint it the way it's supposed to be painted, and I'll show you what I mean. So we'll start with some Scotch-Brite and clean off that gray residue. I'll wipe off as much of that as I can with a lacquer thinner, just to clean it up without going completely over the area where the text is, because especially with a rag like this, it will wipe the paint out of the text. And once the paint is dry, then I can go back a really fine sandpaper. And now I will take some satin clear, because I don't want it to be glossy. And look at that. Just brings it right back to life. I'll get a little clear on the base. Well, once that's dry, looks all fresh and new again. And you can see the finish. It was pretty poor finish, and this is the original paint. I'll just scuff it up good. Got some 400 grit sandpaper so it doesn't leave a scratch, a deep scratch I should say. And you can see all around here, that's the main reason why I wanted to repaint it. It's been touched up a few times. It was touched up with some flat black instead of semi-gloss. This should be a semi-gloss painted finish. I'll tack rag it off. Get rid of all the dust and lint. Now I want to just put on a really light mist coat to just kind of get everything covered. Okay, that's probably 3 really super light coats. And then I put just a little bit heavier of a coat on the last 4th coat. It looks really good. I don't see any fisheye, no runs, no dust. Perfect.